Katie and Ryan got married a few years back. You know how some couples, once they tie the knot, start drifting away from their old friend groups and all those hangouts? Well, that was never Katie's style. She'd been best friends with Nancy since high school. Nancy was a little shy in front of strangers, but around her friends she was unbelievably chatty, always coming up with all sorts of ideas, some so bizarre that even Ryan had to talk his wife out of going along with them. But after Katie got married, Nancy did chill out a bit. She wasn't dragging her friend into any more questionable adventures. Still, Katie and Nancy stayed close. They'd see each other just about as often as before, with a slight tweak to include Ryan in some of their plans. Then, on one of their regular Saturday meetups in Central Park, Nancy suddenly announced there was going to be this awesome concert next weekend, and they absolutely had to go. Katie agreed on the condition that they'd wrap it up fairly early. "Oh, don't worry about it," Nancy said. "By 10 o'clock we'll be out of there." Ugh. I can't wait to let loose, and who knows, maybe I'll even meet someone interesting. See, Nancy was absolutely fixated on finding herself a partner. All their mutual friends had gotten married already, and she felt like a lone wolf. So she was trying everything. Dating apps, chance encounters at grocery stores, random conversations in checkout lines. Whatever it took. Truth be told, those in-person meetups were a challenge for her, given how shy she could be. Online flirting felt safer, but honestly, it's not like she'd had much luck there either. Finally, the day of the concert rolled around. Katie promised Ryan she'd be home by 10:30. Out of courtesy, she even asked if he'd like to tag along, but concerts weren't really his scene. When Katie met up with Nancy, she almost didn't recognize her. Nancy was dressed to the nines, so bright and bold that nobody could look away. "Nancy, I get that you're here to scope out potential dates," Katie teased. "But seriously, what if a couple of guys come over to us? Am I supposed to blow the second one off? How do you want me to act?" "Oh, come on," Nancy laughed. "I'll try not to rope you in. You're mainly my moral support tonight." That reassurance lasted about an hour. Then, as Katie glanced away from the stage, she spotted Nancy headed her way arm in arm with some guy, and trailing behind them was another dude she'd never seen before. Nancy's expression said it all. She needed Katie to play along. "Just go with it," Nancy whispered as she reached Katie. "Please chat him up a bit. The other guy's really cute, and I don't want to blow this chance. You don't have to do anything serious." So they introduced themselves. The guys offered to grab some drinks, and Nancy was practically swooning over her new crush. Katie, on the other hand, stayed cautious, but she had to admit the friend, let's call him Mark, was polite enough. He was definitely attractive and charming, but he wasn't pushy or suggestive. They just had a friendly conversation and called it a night. A couple of days later, Nancy invited Katie to meet her after work at their favorite little restaurant. When Katie arrived, she noticed Nancy looked super anxious. "You okay?" "Something happened," Katie asked. "Please don't be mad," Nancy blurted. "I just knew you wouldn't agree if I asked first, but I was so nervous." She got cut off when those two guys, Mark and Nancy's new flames, strolled over to their table. That's when Katie realized Nancy had set them up on a double date. Nancy had pulled something like this once before, asking Katie to come along for backup. Katie had been ticked off back then, so clearly Nancy had decided to be sneakier this time around. Katie was just about to chew Nancy out when Mark slid into the seat next to her and gave her this sweet, heart-melting smile. For a moment, she forgot she was even mad. Their conversation flowed so naturally that at some point, Katie, without thinking, slipped off her wedding ring. Just for one evening, she wanted to feel like a free woman, especially with such a charming guy by her side. Within a week, Katie and Mark were going on dates without inviting anyone else along. Of course, she kept all of this hidden from Ryan. She was terrified to admit, even to herself, that she was falling for another man. Every time they met, she told herself it'd be the last time, that she couldn't keep betraying her marriage, but she was already in too deep. Soon enough, their dates escalated beyond simple walks in the park or dinner at a cozy bistro. Ryan, meanwhile, started noticing changes in Katie's behavior. She was constantly daydreaming and sometimes didn't even hear him when he asked her a question. One evening, She was running late from work, and her phone was off. Ryan was so worried he was about to jump in his car and go look for her. When Katie finally got home, he rushed to hug her right there in the hallway, having imagined the worst. That's when he caught a whiff of cologne, definitely not his own. Feeling uneasy, he decided not to confront her right away. He wanted to watch her a bit longer, see if something else felt off. Katie washed up, slipped into her nightgown, and climbed into bed. That's when Ryan noticed something he couldn't ignore, a hickey near her chest. He knew he hadn't been intimate with her in ages. She kept complaining about being too tired, so there was no way he was responsible for that mark. Trying to keep his cool, he asked her in a steady, ice-cold voice, "So who's your boyfriend?" It wasn't even a question of whether there was one. He spoke like it was a given. Katie just froze. She stared at him, mouth slightly open, tears welling up in her eyes. Ryan knew she wasn't good at coming up with quick excuses or mounting some fierce defense. This was the right moment to press her, and press her he did. Katie broke down. Through her sobs, she admitted she had no idea how it all snowballed. But that what started as just helping Nancy meet some guy turned into a full-blown affair. She even told him about that unexpected double date. She said she regretted everything and begged for forgiveness. Ryan was so stunned by all this information that he just listened in silence. When she finally stopped crying, she looked at him, desperately hoping he'd somehow agree to work it out. But the look on his face was grim. He took a deep breath and said, "No, Katie. This is it. I'm done. I'll never forgive you for stabbing me in the back like this. Get your things and go." Another wave of tears was about to pour out, but Ryan waved her off and told her to move faster. She made a few feeble attempts to talk, but Ryan just walked into another room, leaving her alone with her suitcases. Katie left that same evening close to midnight. Ryan didn't want to drag it out, dissect the reasons for her betrayal, or argue about the why. As far as he was concerned, it was pointless. He saw the problem, and the solution in his eyes was a clean break. His ex-wife stayed with a friend for a week, crying her heart out. Then someone suggested that maybe this was just fate, like maybe it was meant to be. If Katie and Mark had such a passionate fling, and now her marriage was over, nothing was stopping them from being together, right? Only by the time Katie came to that realization, Mark had found out the truth. She'd been married the whole time and never told him. He was disgusted by the lies, and once he heard that her husband had kicked her out, he lost every bit of interest. He even quit responding to her messages. That's when Katie really felt abandoned. She kept calling Mark, trying to explain and ambush him outside his apartment, but it only pushed him further away. In the blink of an eye, she'd lost both what she already had and what she'd hoped for. For a whole month, she was in a deep depression and even took time off work. When it was time to go back, she couldn't bring herself to face anyone, so she ended up losing her job as well. Eventually, she pulled herself together enough to find another gig. She even started going on dates again, and wouldn't you know it, Nancy was single once more too, so they ended up hitting the town together, both on the hunt for someone special. Of course, each kept certain details to herself. Nancy wasn't about to admit how long she'd been on this manhunt, and Katie sure wasn't explaining the real reason her marriage blew up. And that's how life can be sometimes. One moment you think you've got everything under control, and the next, it all unravels before your eyes. Katie learned that the hard way. Now she's out there, trying to piece together what's left of her life, one date at a time.